So all I'm saying is, like, I'm not one for like this hokey, cokey magic stuff, and superstitions.
Oh
But
God.
all I'm saying is, you were there taking a
Mm.
picture next to K-Mag's car.
Yeah.
Now, when was the last time that Kevin Magnussen didn't finish qualifying and didn't finish the race? And were you there?
Well,
All I'm
technic.
saying is, you managed to take a picture with K-Mag's car, and this is what happened. So maybe, can we just fly you to Hungary and get you a picture with Max
With
Verstappen's car?
Well, you saw the TikTok I put up. So. But yes, hello everyone, and welcome to the 107 podcast, where I single-handedly brought down Kevin Magnussen with one photo. But yeah, no. So that photo exists. For those of you who don't know, I had a photo taken in the Haas garage by the Haas team photographer, and essentially I was in the paddock. I had a paddock pass, which is absolutely mad, a complete pinch yourself type moment. And essentially I shithoused it. Like, in all honesty, it was mad. It was, like I said, it was when I walked into the paddock and stuff like that. I just froze. I didn't know what to say or what to do or anything like that. And the guy I was with, Andy, a huge thank you to Andy as well for obviously organising everything and getting me in. But like, I just didn't know what to do with myself or what to say. And he realised that. And like, after about 20-30 minutes, he could see I was more relaxed and was like asking questions and bits and pieces like that. So, because it was very overwhelming because I just wasn't expecting it. And anyway. But so in this episode, I'll just chat through essentially what happened during the day, who I saw, who I didn't see, who I might have like bumped into, and which Formula One driver I had a 10-15 minute conversation with. So we'll start off with I have written it down as well. And so essentially we go in, and this is when the infamous photo is taken with Kevin Magnussen's car.
So can you start from the beginning? So you get given your pass, and and you go into the entrance that we see all the drivers go through with the turnstiles.
Yeah, the bloop happened as I went through.
Okay. So you go in, and then do you immediately go to the Haas garage?
Yeah,
or
so
do you
I go
anywhere else first.
I go straight into we stand in like the corridory bit where you can see all of the team hospitality, and then you can see the
where Ted does
like
his,
the paddocks and
notebook.
stuff. Exactly. So we've gone in, and Andy has said, "Come on, let's go straight into the garage. We'll go straight and see the cars and stuff like that." So we go in. And it just immediately just hits me that like it's actually happening. There's a Formula One car. There's two Formula One cars obviously sat like meters away from me, and the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg is being worked on. They're doing some bits and pieces with the electrics. I think there was something that they were just double checking, or it was like scrutineering or something like that. And then to my right was Kevin's car, and I obviously had a photo with Kevin's car, as like nothing against Nico, but if like living in Denmark and like also being quite a big fan of Kevin.
Oh, Danish friends.
I had a photo with Kevin's car. And then so I have a little bit of a chat with Andy, and also like I say hello to a couple of the engineers as they're working on Kevin's car. And I don't really ask too much essentially, but just chat randomly about what goes into actually doing it. I had a peek because the nose was off, and I had a peek like into the nose, and you could see like some of the inner workings of the car as well, which was awesome. And just chatted about like F1 bits and pieces with the guy Andy. And then we disappeared like back out of the garage, and he's like, "Come on, I'll see if I can introduce you to like the social media guy and the content team," which is great because obviously that's something that I really really love. I love to do, and I took some what I think are really really good photos during the weekend as well. So, but we can get onto that in the next episode or whenever. But so we walk back out, and as we're walking back out, Ocon and Otmar are walking into the Alpine like hospitality suite which was the motorhome, yes. Which is just a little bit further down. Like I think they were next to Haas, I believe, or maybe APX GP were in between, but we'll get to them in a minute. But we go straight into the Haas motorhome hospitality suite thing, and I look to my left, and Nico Hulkenberg is having a chat with, I can't remember her name. I'm really sorry. She was really lovely. But he's having a chat to some lady at the back, and then somebody looks up from his phone, and it's Kevin Magnussen. And so we literally had a chat for like 10-15 minutes.
How did it start?
And
This is also because, like, obviously sometimes you can feel like I don't want to disturb a driver.
yeah,
Did he like kind of just notice you and he's like, yeah, it's cool to come up? Did Andy introduce you, or were you like, oh, Danish friends?
no, so he was quite reserved. And so essentially I walk in with Andy.
Dane? That was reserved?
And yeah, I know,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I walk in with Andy, and Kevin is sat opposite his engineer. Or like his I can't remember exactly what it is, but I know his name was Nikolai. But essentially, Andy is like, hi, like, Kevin, Kevin and Nikolai, I'd like you to meet Jacob. He's a big, like, Haas fan, and I was even wearing my Kevin Magnussen hoodie as well. And so I was just like, yeah, hi, nice to meet you, like, etc., and just like, and then I attempted some very, very bad Danish. Obviously living in Denmark and speaking a bit of Danish, I did say to him, congrats on 150 races in Formula One, because that happened the week before, so that happened in Austria. And he's literally just gone, sorry, what was that? In English. And I'm like, I fucked it, I've absolutely ruined it. And so they repeated it in English, and it was like, oh, right, okay. And then I started speaking to Nikolai, and it turns out that his parents grew up in the same town that I live in as well. So it was just like, I mentioned what like road name I live on, and he was like, no way, I know where that is. It's just it's such a small world. And we didn't even really chat that much about F1. I think it was just random bits and pieces. I think one of the things that I did say was that when I started getting into Formula One was around about the time that Kevin came into Formula One. And so I said, like, I said one, I remember one of the first sort of races I saw was Kevin's P2 on his debut in Austria for McLaren. And he was like, wow, that is a long time ago, actually. I also gave him my little like business card like minifigure as well, because of course. And yeah, it was just like, honestly, we just chatted about random stuff like accents in Denmark, and like how the fact that like you can, like, almost like in the UK, accents are different 20 minutes away from each other. But anyway, it's all boring bits and pieces, but it was just a normal conversation. I didn't ask him for a photo. I didn't ask him to sign anything or anything like that. And in all honesty, for me, I sort of got the vibe that he was sat down. He was in the like the motorhome. He was trying to relax. He was trying to, like, not really do a lot. So I just didn't want to be a dick at the same time. And also, I'm not the kind of person who needs to have a photo or needs to have something signed. I'm more than happy to have an engagement with somebody and have nothing physical come out of it, type thing. So I also bumped into a couple of other people. I didn't get any photos with anyone. I took a few selfies and that was about it, but I didn't get any photos, no signatures, no nothing, because I would much rather have a meaningful engagement, essentially. But yeah, so we had a bit of a chat and it was absolutely brilliant. And then we gave him my minifigure. I shook his hand twice, same as the engineer as well. I was as kind as I could be, and then at that point Andy was like, I'm going to go and do some photography bits and pieces, you're free to just roam around and do whatever you like. So I was just left on my own in the paddock. And as he says that, Logan Sargent starts walking past me, and he goes, oh yeah, that's Logan. I was like, oh shit, yeah, it is. Essentially, he was saying, oh, Logan's a really nice guy. So he did some photography shoots, bits and pieces with Logan Sargent, and he said it was a really nice bloke. So hats off to Logan.
Seems like a nice bloke, yeah.
Yeah, he seems not like nice enough, like normal, like just a decent bloke, which is really, really nice to see. But yeah, so he was just like, look, go and have an explore, go wander around, go chat to some people, do whatever you want, type thing, and just, yeah.
And so your pass lets you in to
anywhere.
the area,
anywhere,
and the front part where they're doing like the pit stop practices.
Yeah.
And stuff
so
like that. Anywhere else,
I could go into the pit lane, I don't. This is the thing. He didn't like fully explain the rules, so I didn't know if I was allowed to go into other teams' garages or into other teams' hospitality suites or anything like that. So I just didn't. But that's one of the regrets. I think that because I only went into the Haas garage, I think if I'd have been really nice and just asked, I think I would have been able to go and see the McLaren cars up close. That's my one regret, is that I didn't say, hi, look, I'm really sorry. I know I'm here with Haas, but can I literally just walk in and just have a look around the garage? I won't take any photos or anything like that. I just want to experience it, but I just didn't ask. That's my one regret from it, obviously being a big McLaren fan. But so I just walked around, took some photos and bits and pieces, which we were allowed to do. I bumped into Lawrence Barretto, who's obviously on F1 TV, and the woman whose name I can't remember off the top of my head.
Is she on F1 TV as well?
Yeah.
Or she's Sky?
No, she's F1 TV. I will very quickly.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Presenters. I just can't remember her name. It's not Natalie Pinkham. It is Laura Winter. Yeah, it was Laura Winter. I'm pretty sure. So I bumped into those two, but they were like having conversations with like production people, so I just didn't want to bother them. I also saw Steve Jones from Channel 4 as well. And I would have said hello to Martin Brundle. I did see Martin Brundle, but he was having a conversation with somebody. So I didn't say hello or anything like that. Again, I just didn't want to be rude. But so I saw him. I carry on walking down the pit lane, and I'm like not the pit lane, through the paddock, just taking a few more photos. I see JME, who's like a grime rapper. He was in the Alfa Romeo hospitality suite as well. And then essentially I went back into the Haas garage and was just chatting to Andy a little bit more. And he was like, oh, there's a pit lane walk happening right now. Why don't you join in with that? Because there's going to be pit stop practices going on up and down the paddock. So I just essentially joined in the pit lane walk, which I have no idea how much people actually have to pay for those tickets. But I got in for free. And I also saw Naomi Schiff as well. Obviously she's part of Sky F1 too. But yeah, so walked up and down the pit lane, watched teams do pit stop practices. So I watched McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull do pit stop practices. I also grabbed 2 signed driver cards from Lewis and George, and you can they are properly hand signed as well, and they are Silverstone limited edition ones. But you can see they're not printed because you can see the pen indentation on where the actual ink is, which is really cool. So I got That's 2 cool. Signed driver cards. And then I walk back up the pit lane towards the end of the pit exit, and I go out on the track and essentially walk a little bit of the track to have a couple of photos taken, and then come all the way back down, peer into the APX GP garage and see Toto chatting to a few different people. And then while I'm waiting outside, here's a little bit of a scoop. So I won't tell you stuff that I was told in confidence, but I will tell you things that I overheard. And I'll leave a couple of the details out so I don't get anyone in trouble. But I overheard 2 McLaren employees chatting to each other. And essentially he was like, oh, one person was like, oh, I don't know, whereabouts you work in McLaren, and the other person has gone, oh, I work in Aero. And he's like, oh, yeah, great. Where did you move from? And they said they moved to McLaren from Aston. And they're going, yeah, the culture in McLaren is really, really lovely. And there's a little bit of blame culture within Aston Martin. And I was like, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. And that was something, again, they were saying this within earshot of hundreds of fans. So I'm not reporting or saying anything that I shouldn't be told. They should know better at that point. Like I said, I was told some other bits and pieces in confidence that I won't repeat. I guess almost like Terry and Matt were told some bits in confidence from when we had them on a couple of months ago. But yeah, that was one of the things I was like, oh, that's a bit juicy. But apparently the culture in McLaren is lovely. So I mean, big up McLaren. So yeah, it was just interesting. And then I went back up to the end of the pit lane. And then they had groups of people going down the pit lane. So they had one group And then there was nothing, and then there was another group that were further down. And in between these groups, guess what comes up? The
Apex GP.
the Chrome McLaren walks past me, right, and just as I'm getting to the Haas garage, so I have to literally go through the barrier to get into the Haas like pit lane garagey bit, and then they turn in and they're just about to go into FIA scrutineering. So I was literally within a meter of the McLaren, literally watching them go into scrutineering and stuff. It looked phenomenal up close, and I do have to say, like the photos and stuff that they shared online don't do it justice. It is gorgeous in person. That livery is unreal. And I think the Williams livery as well, with the special like British flag on the back of it as well, also looks gorgeous in person as well. So just a little bit of like a note around those. They do just look brilliant. And then essentially out of nowhere, as I'm watching the McLaren go in, they start moving around the safety cars. So I take a couple of shots of the safety cars moving around too. And it was the Mercedes. It wasn't the Aston Martin safety cars this week. And then as I'm doing that, Crofty pops out of nowhere. So he's taking photos with fans and stuff like that. I just wait because he's trying to run off to go and do some bits for Sky F1. Once he finished that, I just said, "Oh, hello mate, nice to meet you." Gave him a fist bump, and then he said, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you too," and then literally ran off. So got to bump into Crofty as well. And then so by that point, the Haas team are ready to do some pit stop practice. So the pit stop practice happens. I'm taking some shots of the pit stop practice, a couple of videos and bits and pieces. And again, just chatting to Andy about the car and about how the wheel guns work. And we weren't exactly sure, like, you know, what the power, like how powerful they were. Because if you don't know, these things are so loud, and the TVs don't really do it justice. Those pit stop guns arguably are louder than the cars themselves, and I do not say that lightly. Like, these pit stop guns are so loud. I did some research afterwards, and I realized that these pit stop guns, which can cost like 30,000 euros or dollars, through to like 50 to 70,000 dollars. I think Andy said that Haas's were on the lower end, because he was saying that in comparison, Williams, they have a much more sophisticated system essentially, but they spin up to 15,000 RPM with 300 foot-pounds of torque. That is mad. Like, that's so much power behind these wheel guns, and so obviously they're going to make a lot of noise. They were deafening, but it was obviously really cool to be that up close and watching these guys do the pit stops and stuff like that. We also chatted about, like, we had like the rack of like front wings just next to us too. So we were chatting about, like, I said it's absolutely mad that they had like the little metal bits that hold the different fins on the front wings together. And I was like, it's absolutely mad knowing that there would have been 3 1-hour meetings depending on whether or not that one little metal bit was at this angle or this angle, like 1 degree change type thing. Because these cars are so developed and there's so many meetings and so many like hours and hours of R&D that go into this, it's just absolutely mad. And then like just the delicacy of it as well, like it was just absolutely ridiculous. So we just chatted a little bit about that sort of stuff. Just absolutely insane. And like I said, got to watch pit stop practice and all that fun stuff. And I took so many photos. I think I took about like 500 photos or something like that within like a couple of hours. Maybe 2 hours I think I was in the paddock. And then we disappeared into the back of the garage, because essentially there was not really a lot going on and there was not that much else to do, to be honest with you. I just chatted to the drivers, I've taken loads of photos, I've joined in a pit lane walk and everything, and I then just disappear essentially. So but it was I presume you've probably got a couple of questions, but it was ridiculous, absolutely unreal, the whole experience, and something which I would love to do again, absolutely, given the opportunity, obviously. But it was just something that I will absolutely never forget. And like I said, my only regret is that I didn't ask if I could pop in and into the McLaren garage, because that would have been amazing. But at the same time, I was in the Haas garage. That is absolutely mad. Like, there's no reason why I should have been there, type thing. So yeah, absolutely loved it.
Was there anything that you mentioned the pit stop guns that the
Mm,
TV doesn't show or doesn't come across in the TV that you saw when you were in the garages or and about like, oh, this is bigger, this is louder,
yeah,
this is you don't even see this kind of thing.
the pit stop guns were really really loud, and it was just something I wasn't quite expecting. Like while they were doing the pit stop practices, and they had like obviously fans who had paid to be there, walking up and down the pit lane and watching these teams, do what they do. Like so many people jumped when they first heard the wheel guns go because they just weren't expecting it to be that loud. So I don't think the TV does that justice. And then the other thing, which obviously you can never ever tell through the TV, is the smell.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying that Crofty smells or anything like that. It was Kevin. No, I'm kidding. But like the smell, like in the garage, like it just stank
Or like
of
fuel
like
and stuff
fuel and oil and stuff like that. It's just something that I like nobody had ever mentioned before. And you could also smell like some of the tire rubber as well. And like I experienced them take off one of the tire blankets. And they hadn't put like the heat or anything on them, but you just get a whiff of like fresh rubber. That was something else which just, like I said, like it's something that obviously would never ever come over on the TV, and something which you probably won't hear many people talk about. But that was something else as well. But it was also just super calm. And obviously in the paddock isn't something you would typically see that much of. But like I wandered down to the McLaren hospitality, and people were just like they were just having a laugh. They were just like moving tires and like cleaning and like just like you expect them to be really professional and stuff like that. And I'm not saying they were unprofessional or anything, but it was just a very relaxed atmosphere to be in. Now I will say I was there on the Thursday and I was not there on the
and you're probably
Saturday or Sunday.
home race for a lot of people as well.
Yeah, home race for a lot of people. Yeah,
they probably have managed to spend some more time with friends and family.
exactly. Because I think we'll cover the calendar for next year at some other point. But like these guys spend months away from their families, which is like such a dedication. So hats off to them, in complete honesty. It's something which I'm obviously a little bit used to, not living in the UK and being away from family, and being in Denmark, but like these guys do it all the time. And yeah, it must be sporadic, etc., etc. But it was just a really nice day to be there. And Andy did say like it's so chill on a Thursday because everyone's setting up and they've got like pit stop practices just for the crowds, and also obviously for the pit stop guys to get their practice in and stuff like that. And there's so many people, but you can definitely tell that. And this is in no way a shot against Haas or anything like that, but Haas had maybe 12 guys or whatever it was working on the pit stop, but Ferrari and like McLaren and Red Bull, they had a swarm of people. There was like a noticeable difference in people within the garage. There was just like per wheel there was just one extra person there for like within the garage or within eye shot type thing. Whereas with Haas and Williams a little bit as well, there just wasn't as many people. So either I wasn't paying too much attention, or obviously maybe they were taking it in shifts or whatever, or I have no idea. But there just seemed to be less people within the Haas and a little bit less within Williams as well. So, but then again, also I would point out that everyone in the Ferrari pit stop was all wearing bright red, whereas everyone in the Haas was wearing black and a little bit of red. So I guess it obviously stands out a bit more if you're wearing those brighter colours. So.
Nice, man. Well, glad you enjoyed it. Sounds like an experience you'll never forget.
Oh, honestly, like just absolutely insane. I think I said to you before, like I had potentially the opportunity to do that in Austria and I didn't. And I'm so glad that I did it in the UK and Britain for the British Grand Prix compared to Austria. Purely, obviously, it's my home race, if that makes sense. So it was just something a bit different. And like it was also then very weird because I was there for the whole weekend. I had tickets for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was then very weird being so separated from it as well, actually watching on camera as well, and like on the screens, and then also from maybe 50 to 80 meters away in the stands as well. It was a very weird sort of removal essentially. So yeah, but like I said, I absolutely loved it. I'm still partly speechless there. How ironic that I managed to mess that up. Still partly speechless there. What's wrong with me? From the experience, I'm going to forget that word. Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous.
So what was the rest of the Silverstone experience like? Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, having the seat, seeing the cars on track, anything that stood out, anything that was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that a lot more in the like British Grand Prix review, but it was so I had a seat as well. So I wasn't general admission. I was in the national pit straight. And I had a seat pretty much slap bang like in the middle in terms of like from the front to the back. So I was like covered it when there was rain, because there was a bit of rain on the Saturday. And like just to the right as well. So I couldn't quite see one of the corners, but you could see like the whole of the national pit straight. So I couldn't see much of Woodcote. And I definitely couldn't see Luffield, but I could see Copse, and I could see obviously the national pit straight as well. And yeah, I think that the one thing again that doesn't come through on TV, and obviously we were there in Austria, so you sort of know as well. But like the speed that they take into Copse is just phenomenal. It's just so much speed, and they just turn in like they're on rails. It's absolutely mad. And also it gives me a bit more respect for the crash that Verstappen had there 2 years ago, because I wouldn't want to crash in that corner. That was absolutely ridiculous.
Wasn't it like 130 miles per hour?
Something like that, yeah. I can very quickly Copse F1 speed. F1 cars hitting the apex at 180 miles an hour.
180?
180 miles per hour you go through Copse. So your 130 is nothing. That's what they were doing on warm-up laps. But so, and then obviously I think Max had a crash there. It was like 53G or something like that, like when he hit the barrier.
51 or something like that. Yeah.
So it was around 50. A little over 50, but yeah, it was just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I will obviously chat about other experiences and bits and pieces in the episode where we talk about the British Grand Prix and the review. And obviously this was more around like the paddock and stuff like that. But like I said, it was very strange comparing the like literally being up close, and I did touch a couple of the Formula One cars as well. So I touched Magnussen's car, which went horribly wrong, which is ridiculous. And also I was inspecting, as Seb did. Technically I should be fined €50,000 for this, but I was touching the front wing of Nico's car, or one of the spare front wings. And like I said, I was chatting with Andy, and we were talking about how some of the stickers and stuff that they have on the wing are actually embedded in the carbon fiber, and some of them are just stuck on. And he said it's less like the ones on the side, where I think there are like I think they're spark plugs on the side, like stickers of spark plugs. They were stuck on, whereas the ones on the front of the wing at the bottom, they were actually embedded within the carbon fiber itself.
Is that to make it smooth and more?
Yeah, so obviously the airflow is smoother, but apparently on the sides it doesn't matter as much. So that's at least what he was saying. So I believe that's what he was saying, unless I just wasn't listening. But there were some, like so many of the random bits and pieces. I'm just flicking through the photos and stuff now. Like I saw like the trolleys that they take out with all the wheels on and stuff like that when they take them to the grid. So I saw like all of those, and then all of the tire blankets. So many tires, by the way, so many tires, and tire blankets and stuff like that. Absolutely ridiculous. And then I will finish up by talking about the APX garage as well. I didn't spot Damson Idris or anyone like that, or any of the what's the other bloke's
Anyone
name?
like that? Brad Pitt.
I couldn't remember his name, and I was struggling for time, to be completely honest. But I didn't spot either of those two. But like I said earlier, I did spot Toto chatting to a few guests within that garage as well, because I think they're obviously being supported quite a bit by Mercedes.
Yeah, they've got the Mercedes logo on the car. So
yeah, exactly. Which, can I just
engines.
point out that some companies decided to sponsor a imaginary Formula One team, but didn't sponsor like Williams or like Haas or something like that.
It's cost involved, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a cost involved, but it was just a bit random that like this fake Formula One team has real sponsors.
And maybe they can't sponsor other things.
Yeah, I'm sure there are reasons for it, but it was just a slight bit odd to me, I guess. But yeah, like I said, like time of my life. Yeah, I'm just looking at the photo of me literally holding the front wing, and there's like a white line that goes along the bottom of the bottom of the wing, and it is literally embedded into the carbon fiber. So yeah, but yeah, absolutely mad. Like,
brilliant. Well, I think you gave the listeners and viewers a real insight into going backstage at a Formula One race.
I hope I did. And if anyone has any questions of stuff that maybe I didn't potentially answer or something like that, feel free to use the email, which is either on screen or within the description of however you're watching this, or just message us, tweet us, whatever. It's not that we do anything else, so you're more than welcome to ask away.
If you look at some of our posts, we are responding to the comments.
Yes, so if you've ever shared one of our reels or posts or anything like that, typically we actually, reach out and say thank you, because we're slowly but surely building a really amazing community here, which is lovely.
We had some great comments on one of the reels. So yeah, it's good, and we'll keep the F1 memes and stuff coming.
We will keep on coming. But
yeah. Thank you for listening to the 107 podcast with Jacob.
Yeah, sorry. If you don't like the sound of my voice and you're here for Ash, sorry, but next
all right.
episode.
I mean, like, this is what it was. Like, it was about your experience, and it's really good to hear it. And yeah, if you have any questions, because I'm sure there's stuff we didn't cover, reach out, and Jacob will be happy to.
I'll respond. I'll answer any questions that I can. I think I tried to stay within a half an hour time limit. We're currently running at 32 minutes 22 seconds, so I'd say that's done okay. But
I'm sure we'll also just touch on some stuff in the Silverstone episode.
Yes. So if you're listening to this right now, that will mean that essentially by the time you probably finish listening to this, if you listen to this just as we upload it, the next episode where we talk about and review the British Grand Prix will be live. So we will see you there.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.